Hey there everyone, here is a sample presentation for the Science in the News assignment. At the start of this, I'm just going to give a quick recap of what you need to do for the assignment, and then I will give you the sample presentation. Hopefully it won't take too long. Alright, so our goal is to learn about recent discoveries in biology. So you need to go to the Science Daily website. And once you're there, look around for topics that are of interest that are about some recent scientific discovery. And so again, your goal is, this is an opportunity to start reading and finding some examples of primary research articles. So at the end of every Science Daily article, you'll find a journal reference, such as the one that I've highlighted here. And along with that, you should find a DOI, Digital Object Identifier, with a link to click and see if we have access to that article. And if you find one that looks super awesome, but it doesn't look like we have access, or you get asked to pay some whoppingly large sum of money, don't pay any money, and instead just get in touch with me, and we should be able to find it through other means. So through interlibrary loan, for example. In this case, this is an article that I found that works pretty well. So it has a bit of a tongue twister for a title. So changes in the gut microbiota of urban subjects during an immersion in the traditional diet and lifestyle of a rainforest village. The topic that I was interested in. So when I clicked that DOI, here's the web page that it brought me to. And what you want to do on this web page is look somewhere for a PDF link. What's displayed on the web page is an HTML version that's usually a lot longer, not as nicely formatted, and this PDF version will be a nicely formatted version of the article for you to read through. So here's what the actual PDF version looks like of this article. So here's the title, there's a whole bunch of authors, and then the next section here is the abstract. So you need to again, you don't have to understand every single word, but take a look through this primary research article to identify the figure that you'll focus on for your presentation. So now here, without further ado, is my sample presentation. So for your first page, you want to screenshot the title of the article. So here's what this article is about. And here's a brief explanation of what this study was about. So biologists have come to recognize that microorganisms, or microbes, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, can have a huge effect on human health and well-being. So they're important for us. And these scientists started out with the basic observation that people can vary a lot in their individual microbial diversity. And so in this case, the scientists were interested in thinking about people that live in Western societies, and in general what's been found is that those people have lower microbial diversity compared to people from a non-Western society, and in this case specifically people from the Yaquana village in Venezuela. And just to get you oriented, so here is Venezuela in South America, and the village that the scientists were studying is located where this asterisk is. So the scientists' causal question in this experiment was, why do different people have different levels of microbial diversity? And they tested two hypotheses in this particular experiment. Not all experiments will, and that's fine, but in this case it's more fun to highlight both. So their first hypothesis is that this microbial diversity has to do with what people eat. So different diets could be facilitating the growth of different microbes. So their prediction is that people that are switched to a more complex diet will have a higher microbial diversity than people with a simpler Western diet. And their second hypothesis is that it could have to do with a person's age and history. So the microbes that are present determine whether or not new microbes can get established. So for this hypothesis, their prediction was that younger people that switch environments will see bigger changes in their microbial diversity than older people, because it's harder to replace the microbes in an older person's digestive system. So here's what they did. So their independent variables were the person's age and lifestyle. And so they had 7 people from Caracas, Venezuela, 5 adults, and then 2 kids at ages 4 and 7. And then they had rainforest villagers that consented to participate in this experiment. So 11 adults and 27 kids. And so the main food that the rainforest villagers feed on is cassava. So it's a type of starchy tuber here. And so everyone then ate a diet. So the individuals from Caracas came and visited the village and also ate the villagers' diet. So it was cassava, fish, fruits, and just a little bit of meat. And they measured the microbes in a range of different places. They measured the microbes on everyone's skin, on their mouth, or in their mouth, in their nose, and in their poop. And so they collected samples from each of these places, and then they sequenced the genes that they found in those locations to identify the microbes that were there. So I'm just going to present one result from this study, and this is the microbial diversity in the poop. And part of the reason I chose this is because the changes they observed in the nose, mouth, and skin were not nearly as dramatic as the changes that they saw in poop. So what we have in this graph, it's a pretty complex graph, but we'll take a look at all the different parts of it. So on the left-hand side, we have all of the adults, and then on the right-hand side, we have the children. And the villagers from that village in Venezuela are the first bar that's illustrated within each of these panels, and then the remaining bars are days across the experiment. So when the Caracas residents first arrived up to 3 weeks after they got there. So what this figure shows overall is that, as you can see in the left panel, the villagers had greater microbial diversity than the adults did. And you'll notice that there wasn't any change in the microbial diversity in the adults over time. And then in contrast, over on the right, we have the kids. So again, the villagers' microbial diversity was higher. But then what you will notice with these 2 kids that came in is over time, there was an increase in the microbial diversity in their poop. So collectively, these results support both of the hypotheses I showed you. So both age and lifestyle can influence microbial diversity changes. But that depends on where you're examining the microbes. So I showed you poop samples and no other big changes in other locations. Along with that, in this study, the authors say that we should be really cautious about trying to draw general conclusions from examining just 2 kids. So we can't really say this is going to be true for everybody. But this is some pretty compelling evidence that we should do more studies of this type with kids in the future, because there's definitely some promising trends happening. And they also conclude that based on what they've seen here, they didn't see a change in the adults switching over to the diet of the villagers. That suggests that maybe adults shouldn't really bother trying to change their microbes because it's just not going to work. Okay, so that's all there is to it. So if you were to take a look at the original article, I think you'd discover it was very complex. But in reality, to successfully complete this assignment, your presentation can be pretty simple, because what you need to do is you need to summarize the big takeaway points from that primary research article. So hopefully this has given you some good ideas for thinking about your own presentation. And I have to tell you that I'm really looking forward to seeing what kinds of news stories you bring to our attention.